Okay, one word rapid association. I say incentive and you say
Depends.
oh,
Overused.
overused. Okay. Programmatic advertising.
Buzzwords.
I'd say, huh?
Geofencing.
I like your
Okay.
buzzword one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Oh, she
Trendy.
took it. You gotta say something else, Jackie.
Probably, of course.
Okay. Because it's included.
Yeah.
That's it. Like everything we do includes creating some type of
Yeah.
geofence. How about traffic?
Seasonal.
Up. That's the first word I thought of.
I love it. This is more fun than I thought it would be. Um, hybrid sales.
Expand.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, last but not least, Christmas break.
Yay.
Yeah. Slow, I would say.
Okay.
Time to
Yeah,
slow
it was a
down.
real enthusiastic yay, Julie. We'll be glad that your family doesn't listen to the podcast. All right. Welcome to episode 317. I'm Kevin Oakley. With me today is Julie Jarnagin and Jackie Lipinski. First time back
Back.
since maternity leave.
I know.
Back.
I just feel like the kid in the window that's been looking at the like I'm just like, can I come back and come in? Like obviously I love my daughter, but I'm like, can I be on the podcast and just like sneak in? Like I missed everyone. So
We called her Ghost Jackie on the Slack channel because she would just be there every once in a while. She would be lurking and she would
at like
comment.
3 a.m. I'd be like, here's some stuff now. I'll see you in a week and disappear. So it was a good.
Did you harvest any tomatoes? That's all done.
I didn't
Oh,
count
no?
them this year. I don't have a
Okay.
fun story because I also
I don't-
grew this
They're
story is for
tomatoes.
Will.
I'm not expecting a fun story, honestly. You've done enough fun stories on tomatoes, I
That's
think.
fair. That's fair.
All right, Jackie. Well, no pressure, but it's your first story time since maternity leave. So we're expecting something that is like
Something great. 4 months in
4
the
months
making.
worth of amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no pressure. Well, one, I would just like to say thanks to all the builder partners and obviously the teammates at DYC, Julie, Beth, and Kevin. You guys, you really filled in for me while I took off and obviously appreciated that time. But I'm sure as any parent knows, like you're just glad to be talking to adults again. So I'm like, let's do this. Let's get excited. I feel like I came in, full throttle and ready to get started. And so I'm here. But my real story time actually has to do with while being on leave, your baby sleeps a lot. And my kid went to daycare. So I listened to a lot of books and I listened to a lot of marketing books. And I would say the biggest takeaway, when you jump from book to book to book about the best outlook and things to understand, and, sometimes you don't need it repeated, but it should be, is understanding who your audience is and you're not making a product for everyone. And it made me think of this podcast, like I think other people are like, oh, look how many streams we had. Oh, it's like we have X amount of hardcore fans that we communicate with, we have channels with, we email, and this is for them. And when you think of your home and your product, like this is for these people. This is for these people trying to achieve this thing we're building. So don't forget that. And I think it was I can't remember his name, but the term used was the smallest viable market. And
Sounds like a Seth Godin.
Yeah, it was Seth Godin. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was like 4 months back now. But Seth Godin's smallest viable market and just making sure you're not building a brand and a product for everyone. So stop pretending to. So
okay, so I love it. And it's one of the things. I went to a conference that I've gone to for 2 years now that has nothing to do with home building. It's the only non-industry conference that I go to. And it's for startups and founders and investors, and it's a whole different audience. But they're one of the key themes was that founder-led companies, like founders are the only people who stop doing something. Like as a company gets bigger, a founder's the only one who's be like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to shut that down typically. Otherwise, everyone who comes into a company thinks they have to keep building and building on top of it. And the founder's the one who's like, no, this is our audience. This is why we were created. And because, they don't get the same pushback, or they just don't care. Like, this is the thing I started and we're going to stay focused in this direction, really connects with that. And especially with me, because a lot of people give very good suggestions, for instance, about this podcast, or things that they think we should do, or ways that we could help other people. And it's not that they're not true, but like, I think you could get even more exposure if you started bringing in these kind of guests and talked about these topics. And it's like, but that's not why we made this thing.
Yeah.
Go back and read the blog post from 5 years ago about why we made this thing. And so I think it's really hard, even for any individual doing your own job, to realize, like, keeping the focus on the specific reason why that job exists and who your audience, even if it's only an audience of one, is. Because there's that pressure to do more, do it better, follow the trend. So yeah, I guess that resonates with me, because a lot of times I feel like, even personally, like I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not staying relevant enough. And then every time I get on a call with a builder, which is a lot of time, I'm like, oh yeah, none of that other stuff really matters at all. Like, we're doing what we're supposed to do here.
Yeah.
What about tips for figuring out who that, like, core audience is? Because builders, comically, every time we ask, well, 95% of the time we ask, who's the target market? Especially if an owner's on the call, they will say, people with money, Kevin, people with money. Any human being with money is my target audience.
Well, I mean, I see the most successful builders usually have the clearest understanding of who their actual customer is. Because, I think, we joke, and we'll talk more about incentives, but one builder I've seen, they're like, oh, incentives. It's like, oh, actually 50% of our buyers, cash buyers. These incentive programs we were running and hyper focusing on solely, that's not actually communicating with our buyers. So sitting down with the sales team, sitting down, analyzing who your buyers were, who you think they are, and especially at different price points, and talking to the online sales team and what's resonating with people and questions they're asking, I think is also helpful. Any other recommendations you make, Kevin, for helping discover your audience if you're kind of confused?
Yeah, but I feel like I've already talked a lot. So Julie, anything else you want to add first before?
Well, I think this just, it's important to know what your differentiators are, so that you're not just chasing competitors. We would have this conversation at Ideal Home. Sometimes we would be trying to reach a price that another competitor was at, that were really the price leaders in the market. And then we would have to step back and say, that's not our customer. We build a better quality home. We offer this, we offer that. And I think looking at who your audience is means knowing what you're great at, and not chasing these other things that are not that. It keeps you focused in that group of people who are going to be your customer.
Yeah, I that resonates really a lot with me too, because I don't think the best practice is to say, I'm going to define my best customer and then go, like, catch them with a net. What you really are trying to figure out is what is the innate gravitational pull that the mass of our organization has, and make discovery easy, right? Gravity is already pulling that customer in your direction because they care about the same things that you're providing, and the way you provide it. But then making sure that discoverability, and that's why people, I think, they don't know who they are or what they do better, or at least it hasn't been communicated down the organization to the people making these decisions. But it's not just shouting at more people louder.
No.
Or just saying this certain price point. I was listening to a podcast about real estate, but the used home industry. And the host was talking about how he's a very conservative person. So he typically has bought homes that are like 30% under what everyone else in his world has bought. And you do kind of some fake math on that. And that would be wildly different than what you would expect someone to purchase with that income level. And so again, it's just a reminder of even people with means don't all try to buy the biggest home they can.
Yeah.
They're trying to solve specific issues in their life the best way possible for them.
Yeah. What's important to those people.
Like that. All right, Julie, what about you?
Yeah. So we live in a great neighborhood, and at Christmas time, they put out a red mailbox at the front of the neighborhood. And if you put your letters to Santa in the mailbox, then Santa will write you a letter back. And I'm going to try to be careful, but if you have kids in the car, I might slip up. But so when Santa writes you back, my son got his letter. He's 9. He's still very much a fan of Santa. When he got the letter, it was on fancy paper and it was signed in gold, Santa. But what really impressed him is he had asked for something that like had a big City Greens character on it. And the letter said, the elves love Big City Greens. It's one of their favorite shows that they watch it. And he like lit up and he kept saying, "That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's real, Mom." So just a fun story that reminded me like how important personalization is, that it can be packaged up and be beautiful, but it may not look authentic. But as soon as you give something personal to that person, that's what makes them light up and what makes it feel real. And I don't think, maybe someday AI and chatbots and all that thing will be able to do that, but not yet. You can tell the difference if it feels real and authentic because it's really personalized to what you had asked for or what you want, and when it doesn't feel real. So it was just fun to watch because he was pumped about that.
That's so great. I love it.
Yeah.
Personalization is incredibly powerful, especially in online sales, especially in sales. Marketing for sure too, but I think that's where this focus on automation and I feel like the reason people really get excited about AI is this perception that they're going to be able to do personalization at scale. Oh shoot, there's this great someone on LinkedIn was doing their typical like, follow me and I'll teach you the 35 tricks to hyper automate your workflow to scale whatever. And someone in the comments was like, sounds like this douche is trying to convince people how to use AI to like become even more impersonal. Anyway, it was hilariously written of like, who in the world would want this? Oh, it's about creating AI content that is meaningless and worthless to people, but the amount of it's going to be amazing. And the personalization of it's like, who cares? This we'll make a version of this blog post that only talks about cats, and this version only talks about dogs. And so then the person, and it's like, anyway, personalization is important, but I think authentic personalization is something that still we're really skilled as human beings at picking out.
Yeah. Yeah. We can spot it. We can spot it when it's not real and when it's real. And a 9-year-old can spot it. Not saying that he thought AI was writing that letter, but he was giving me all the reasons that he knew I didn't write that letter. Like he told me that I didn't have a gold pin. So it's like we're just ingrained to be looking for those things, like what's real, what's not real. And those are the things, those personal little things are the thing that made his brain say that that's authentic.
Yeah. I want to wander on this a little bit further. I think there's a direct correlation to humans being able to pick this up by the length of the piece of content. Meaning, marketers tend to, we jokingly say like, no one talks like this when you're reading something that they've written, like an email. Like, for example, you're like, humans do not talk in paragraphs formatted in this way at all.
Yeah.
But if there's just a line that's like, help, or you're like, or you got a second, or like that, it feels like that's the trick, is to give just enough information, but not enough to be, if you're going to try to do some of this automation stuff, it's really, really short prompts where there's not enough data there for you to filter through and be like, is this person actually talking to me or not?
Yeah.
Not that that's foolproof, but I think there's something there.
Yeah. And there's definitely the buzzwords that after you see enough of it, you just see the phrases and the words that just feel like ChatGPT. It doesn't take long. And I can't even tell you exactly what all those are, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah. We still, by the way, keep getting emails every once in a while from people that we've worked with for years. who suddenly are using ChatGPT. Like, don't do that.
Mm-mm.
Or if you do it for something, just tell us, hey, I typed this into ChatGPT
Right.
and here's what
Yeah.
it spit out. Just like be upfront about it.
Well, I'm
in your
going through
email.
resumes now for the 2 open
Oh.
positions that we have, and you would not believe, like, what's comical is they're using AI to write this like really personal, hyper personalized cover letter that doesn't sound real. It's overly flowery, overly descriptive, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go to the resume, and it doesn't talk at all about marketing. It's like fine arts major, been painting for 3 years, and you're like, what? So just, I think, again, use it for inspiration, but there's no reason to hit copy and paste. Or if you do, at least,
Yeah.
let
Make
it.
it personal.
Own it.
Have you all heard that ChatGPT has seasonal affect disorder as well? Have you
I
read these
did hear
articles?
that. Mm-hmm.
No.
Gotten lazy
It's-
for the holidays.
Yeah, it's getting lazy. Just like, hey, it's dark, days are shorter. I'm just going to give you less work from me because I need a break. It's, but I think what's funny is we're humanizing these things, because instead what's happening is ChatGPT hit a wall of usability. Like they couldn't let people join. They let people make their own GPTs like we did for for our show. And it was overwhelmed. So I'm sure someone was like, hey, just try to work a little less. And and immediately we're like, oh, it must be like a human. It must be like us. I just think it's hilarious how we know this thing's not alive, and yet we have to attribute human-like qualities to it. It's hilarious. Anthropomorphizing or whatever, is that what it's called?
Sure. I think that's
Okay. My story time. Man, there's always it's like a war inside my head for where I'm gonna go here. Okay, well, I think first of all, we've have several builders that we're starting with in the new year, and that's always fun. We love this time of year because everyone's looking at their budgets and planning for the next year, and it's ridiculous. Which we have 2 open positions for a reason, because the growth is still going. But several people have commented during the conversation process that they didn't know we provide marketing services. So, my first thing is like, again, we must suck at what we do. That's a joke, kind of, because we intentionally don't sell or over communicate on the podcast. But on one of them, like, this person was like, oh yeah, I've been to the summit. I've listened to the podcast for a long time. And, so I'm going through my mental checklist. I'm like, well, what else could I do? We could like create a internal social network for marketers to be able to, we have that DYC All Access. I could write more for like major trade publications like Builder Magazine. Oh, I mean, employees of ours could win 40 under 40 awards and write books. And yet all of that, it's like not getting through. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Jackie. It's like, okay, if you are a marketer that's not connecting with kind of, I've said this for almost since the podcast started, I can't believe there's as many weird people like you listening to this when we look at the stats. There's not 500 marketers who really pay attention closely. I'm convinced. There's maybe, 75. But for the 75 listening, if you could just help us out and not because we actually don't necessarily have the capacity to bring on a lot more people next year, but if you could just let people know, like, we actually do marketing services. In fact, we're the largest digital agency in the industry in terms of dollars managed and what we do. So I guess
I
that's
wonder
my
what they
story.
thought we did all day. If this is just what we did all
I
day,
think
we only got to do
podcast
this
once a
kind of
week.
stuff.
A lot of it was, well, I know you're all really smart people. In fact, that's a lot of the comments of the people coming over is like, hey, as we always ask them, why are you leaving your current relationship? Okay, those, nothing really bad. We want to work with the best because we really want to grow more next year or whatever. So I think there's a general acknowledgement that we're not incompetent, which is great. But I think their fear is that we're just going to talk to you and then not help you do anything.
Still my favorite interaction with a builder it was like 2 weeks of working together, and I get a phone call and the marketer goes, "What did you do?" And I went, "What did I do? What do you like? Can you expand on that?" And she's like, "Everything is going great." She's like, "Our leads are coming in like incredibly more qualified. Our ads are doing this. Like, what did you do? And I was like, I explained like what we were going to be doing. And I think she just didn't like, you need to see it to believe it sometimes. And so I'm excited for all these new builder partners to see the why.
Yeah.
And so word of mouth marketing, Kevin.
It'll be fun. The other thing kind of goes with and I've talked about this before, and I am kind of glad that I'm becoming well known for this. Programmatic advertising I think it's the last bastion of high margin ad sales that exists in the world right now. But it goes off this idea of personalization to an extreme level. And I heard someone give a talk this past week at a in-person event that I was at. And they were talking about like changing TV creative to only show a version with cats in it to people who like cats, and only show a version. And maybe that's where AI and the promise of AI gets there. But here's what I know from the amount of time I've been doing this. No one has 30 different versions of a 30-second TV spot. They don't. So to your point before, Jackie, like you have to know who you're trying to reach and limit the variation. And then the other thing that cracks me up about all these promises of hyper-personalization is that I still get ads for makeup on all of my social channels because there are 3 makeup purchasers in my house. Kendra Scott, don't know what it is, don't know where it came from, but I get ads for Kendra Scott all the time. The other day, my wife asked me again for maybe the 20th time. She made a declarative statement. I just can't stand how they're listening to us all the time because Wheaton College, I'm getting ads for Wheaton College, and all I did was talk about it with someone else. And I said, let me walk you through this once again. Are you going to Wheaton College? No, I'm not. Has Avery, our daughter, talked about Wheaton in the past? Yes. Why? Because her boyfriend might go there. Okay. So 1, devices are in proximity. Devices in proximity is the number 1 signal. How much proximity? No one really knows, and probably varies by how many people you want to target in a given campaign. But the later that day, I go on my daughter's laptop, look in the history, and she had talked to her boyfriend who had just visited Wheaton. She had gone on her device, looked up Wheaton College information, and then wham, everyone in our household, of which only 1 in the next 2 years may go to Wheaton College. All of the other ad impressions that are hyper-targeted are being charged a premium for that personalized targeting, of which my 9-year-old and now 11-year-old, as of yesterday, do you really want to pay a 35% cost per click premium or a 50% higher CPM rate? Or actually, it's probably 300% higher CPM rate. Like, how programmatic just drives me crazy when people talk about it. It's one of those things that it's so easy to sell and get people excited about because they can, like we've seen Minority Report, we understand like conceptually these technologies exist, but in practical application, I think it's almost, am I going to say it? I think it's almost worse than radio or television on its own. I think it's almost worse. And it tends to be peddled by the same people who used to sell radio and television, which should be another signal. Anyway, I just can't stand the stuff.
Yeah. And we're in home building. It's different as far as Facebook and all those things and all the targeting that we can do is very different too than what Coca-Cola or someone else is doing. So it's understanding our industry as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this earlier today too. I'm almost done with my little mini rant here. The other comment that was made was that e-commerce is where we should be looking as an industry to what we can duplicate and become more like them. And I think there's truth in that to a large part, but from an advertising perspective and from a data perspective, e-commerce has, and Andrew and I have talked about this a lot in the past, so we'll keep it short, like 100 times, which is a lot more times. It's not plus 100 times more data to analyze around something, because if you're Coca-Cola or a jeans company or a purse company, the amount of data there and the speed of the decision-making process informs things differently than than where we are. Okay. I'll say the rest for another day. That's what I got. All right. On to the news. And first up, we have a little blog post from Jackie. Are you guilty of incentive whiplash?
Yeah. So
which has kind of an e-commerce tie-in. So there you go.
Yeah, this stemmed from an email a builder had gotten from their sales team, and it was like, we need to be doing more. And I was like, well, what is that? What is more? And they're like, well, we need to push our incentive. We need to be emailing constantly. How many emails are we sending? Marketing needs to be doing better. Go. And she was like, what? And so I think it's also a zoom out of having a conversation with sales, but also realizing, like you were saying, Kevin, there might be some similarities with e-commerce and new home marketing and sales, but we're not the same industry. And some stats I even pulled, from Amazon, are average price of a product on Amazon, $142. And that 50% of the people buy a product on Amazon within 15 minutes, while it takes home buyers 4.5 months, according to Zillow, to buy a house. So these sometimes sales teams or marketing teams with maybe not enough grasp of pushing incentives and blowing people out of the water and alerting them of all these deals. Like, you have to realize this runway is longer, and we can't have these Black Friday deals, true story, without a more context and more planning as a team behind what we're trying to achieve.
I want you to tell the story from the post about the purse, but before that, how many homes have you purchased or lived in, Julie, since you've been an adult?
Oh gosh, too many to count. Probably 8.
Okay, Jackie?
3.
Okay, I don't know mine either off the top of my head, maybe 4 or 5. How many of them were impulsive, quick decisions? Where, like, you didn't, where an incentive, did any, well, I guess that's the first, did any of them include a giant incentive?
No.
When you purchased them? No, get out of here. You guys are lying.
Well, an employee discount. Does that count?
Okay. No, because that, well, I guess, I mean, maybe.
That's
but even if we throw that one in there, that's one of, a collective 15-ish. And yet I think the mentality is that 50%, 60% of all homes sold are sold because of some incentive or discount given.
Yeah.
It strikes me as odd. Okay.
And that was community. So the purse story that kind of helped me visualize this is I needed a new purse, went to a website. It was $200. And I went, okay, that's too much. I'm going to sign up for email alerts, and I'm going to sign up for text messages. I got a text message, hey, $25 off. So now my purse is $175. Okay. Then I get an email alert that same day, hey, your purse is now $100. And now with a coupon, it's going to be $75. I'm like, great. But like, oh, okay, but I'm going to wait a little bit. I don't need it right now. Then I get an email the next day that goes, hey, that purse you were looking at that was $200, and then $100, and then $75. Now it's $50. And instead of going, gee whiz, let's buy it, I was like, what's wrong with the purse? Like, what? Like, I eventually did buy it, but I had a lot of doubt with it. And it also kind of tarnished the brand for me, because it's a nice brand. It's a nice real leather purse. And then I was thinking, like, wow, some builders approach marketing this way, and they think that the value of the home is going to be there. Like, you go on Zillow, and if you see a house slowly go down and things slowly being offered in discounts to that house, you don't go, wow, I got a great deal. You go, what's wrong with that house? And I think that's a big thing when people are thinking about incentives and how their sales teams are approaching them and how information can be perceived. We have to remember that a new home is a luxury item, and it should be treated as such. And there has to be a balance of how someone wants to be communicated. And the balance also there is that incentives are best used for people you are already talking to. Obviously, we can use it as an email program, get new leads in, but where it's going to be most successful, especially in a small time frame that you're trying to achieve, is working with people who are already in your low sales funnel. So that's,
I think the big thing there is, well, there's lots of things, but the one that really sticks out to me is just waiting to see. We talked before about the lag effect. And from the time you communicate something to your audience, it's going to take, the higher up the funnel that in that customer journey the customer is, the longer it's going to know whether that worked or didn't work. So unless you're talking, if you send something out to just your top 10 prospects for a particular sales rep, you probably only need to wait about 72 hours to know whether that worked or not. But that doesn't mean you should send another one out immediately to all 10 versus making sure that you've made contact with all 10 as a salesperson to really understand where they are, because you don't, to your point, you don't want to have to really do a third incentive. If you come back with a second new option, you want it to be, wow, we have like built-in themes being created, hyper-personalized to their individual situation.
Yeah.
When it comes to promotions too, I think historically my statement has been promotions are an admission of guilt by ownership that your product does not hit the market correctly as is. And that's kind of a little poke at owners and people setting pricing of, hey, this is also your appointment to sale conversion rate is partly on you. Sometimes majority of the fault is at your feet. The financing incentives are maybe the one we kind of fell into that one as an industry of like, oh, here's an incentive that removes a hurdle to purchase and affordability, but changing it from, well, we were at 6, now we're at 5.5, now we're at 5. It still does the same thing you're communicating of like, well, why can't they just give me the best thing?
Or just admit like, hey, we have incentives available, but the right incentive for you is going to happen in a one-on-one conversation to find out.
Because there has to be a particular house you want. If you hadn't picked out a particular purse at all, those incentives wouldn't really have helped. Yeah. There was a purse that you wanted.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of the article was where you said, if after they sent the first discount, then they had started sending me things on why the quality of the purse, how great the purse was, why it was worth the price. I loved that because that's what you needed. Then you needed just encouragement that, you were making a good decision.
Yeah. If there was like a video of them like hand making the purse or some kind of detail, I would have been like, absolutely swipe. So.
Yeah. Or the story about the responsible, sustainable methods, the giving back to wherever it was put together a certain amount of money. Cause then you're like, well, I don't want to screw the women in the villages putting this purse together from making the wage that they need to make. I think all those things are true. I love the reality too, that there's a whole bunch of people who do not check their personal email on a regular basis. And so you kind of allude to this too. It's really possible that someone opens up their email and has 3 emails from you, all of which have been unread. And now you do look like a certain type of, psychopath. Like I haven't even read your first message and the offer's already changed 2 more times.
Yeah. And then you keep texting me. It's like a crazy, like we went on a date, like calm down. So.
I love it. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. But first, I just want to show you all real quick. This is from Home Builder Data. The blue line is lead activity, and it looks like it spiked back up, but that was just for a single day, and we're back down. And that's just the pronouncement quickly. Again, we've been talking about this with our builders for about a week or so. The year is over, and a lot of people kind of understand that conceptually, but from a new lead perspective, the tipping point is clearly on you should spend less dollars trying to focus on getting brand new people in the market right now. If your sales team is still saying, marketing, you've got to get us X number of new leads this year, or we're not going to hit our goal, they need to enroll in something or read some articles that we have to understand the year is done, right? If that person is not already in the middle of the funnel or way past it at this point, you're not hitting those sales. All right. Next up on the news, Redfin introduces Redesign, an AI-powered tool that lets you redesign listing photos. And for those of you watching the video, this is what that looks like. On the left-hand side of the image, is the kitchen as it sits. And then on the right-hand side, or as I'm sliding it back and forth, is the floor color that I'm able to visualize. It's also changed the countertop to a darker color as well. It's not perfect. It's a little janky, as they say. But what do you all think about this? If not the specific, maybe the specific way it is now, but then also how or should builders consider things like this for their own photo galleries?
I know we've been talking about this as like a product to keep people on your website for a long time. And I do think, for builders who maybe don't have the product yet, it'd be also a fun tool, and obviously setting the expectations of what's going to be there. But in terms of the resale world, I also think it simplifies what's actually perhaps a very difficult project. But it does make you fall in love and be like, okay, like, we can live in this home for a couple of years. I hate the kitchen, but if the defining thing about the kitchen is these details, like look what it could look like. And you do have a game plan. So I think it's a fun tool. I think it's a great tool to roll out. And I would love for builders to kind of have this feature. And I know some do, but I do.
Well, I think they have visualization options for what a new home could be, but it's like all artificial visualization versus this being an overlay on top of something that actually exists. Like, I don't think if for a quick move in home, builders aren't going to necessarily love conceptually. I don't think this tool of let's swap out the cabinets and the countertops, but wall color. Anything related to paint, really. Why would you not?
Or people who have, if you build the woodside floor plan and you build it so many times and you have it coming up, and there are still things that can be changed at a certain time in construction, that can be an item added to your website of like, we have this home is going to be built by the end of the year. Here are the things you can change. And then maybe, take that tool off or vice versa. But it can, I think if selling pre-sales is your problem and you have built that floor plan before, I think it'd be a worthwhile tool to have at your hands and disposal to entice people to get in. So, I
did have one interesting response from a builder. I was talking about one builder with this, and she said, we keep looking at visualizing tools and thinking we're going to add them, and we haven't done it because it's just the time commitment and it's going to be clunky, and we have so many plans. And she was like, at this point, I'm just going to wait until AI can help me more with this. After she sees things like that. And I think that's a fair point. Now that we're seeing more and more what kind of things can be done, it is getting harder to make a case for going back and doing that really labor intensive work of some of those visualizers when you have a ton of plans and a ton of things. We still talked about the case. You could just do it on your most popular plans or a few things, but hopefully it gets easier.
Yeah, I want to show you all some of this because there's a company. This is one of their products, which I have pulled up. ReimagineHome.ai is the URL. But I think this is one example that is awesome. So what it is, it's an image of a home under construction, and then you can use that picture of it's in framing, and there's some windows in, and you can slide across. And it shows you what that home is going to look like when it's done. And there's something about the fact that the visualization follows the roof line or the lines of the framing exactly, where it looks like you're unwrapping it or wrapping it, I guess, depending on which way you're sliding it. There's something really powerful about that. I think the same thing with furniture to have on all of your quick move-in homes. Again, you might not want to show different flooring or countertop options for a house that's already existing, but to show, to me, it's like a style of furniture. If you could, at the beginning or in their account when they make one, which we've talked about the reasons why you should do that many times. Once you create a personal account, you could say, this is the type of furniture I have, or this is the type of furniture I like, and then be able to view every photo on that builder's site with that kind of furniture on or off. Another one that Jeff Turner and I talked about, almost 6 years ago is, why can't I upload pictures of my own family or my favorite imagery and have, the artwork on the wall or the thing on the side of the bedstand be my family or my favorite image? And just things that allow people to because everyone knows who's built a house, especially like you're trying to kind of live there mentally. The excitement's so high before you ever get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think good job. Redfin has always pushed forward. Their website is one of the best websites experiences, kind of universally agreed to by those in the industry. And I think this is awesome. Continuing innovation on their end. It's not perfect. It doesn't apply to everything, but for the ones that do apply, there's just now a little button that says redesign. Then it takes you to the photo gallery. You pick the picture you want, and then you can change things out.
I'd love to see if their time on site, like what their time on site change would be from that. That would be interesting data to have.
Yeah, I think just even the time I'm sure is better. But for a used home where so many people already have this idea of I'm going to go in and change stuff anyway, because I wouldn't have picked that carpet. It just seems like an absolute no-brainer for a used home to have that kind of functionality, where more or less time doesn't really matter. It might make you consider a house that you can't get over now because, man, that green carpet just can't do it.
Yeah.
Next up, also from Redfin News, today's Fed meeting brings good vibes for home buyers, pushing mortgage rates below 7% for the first time since July. I saw another article. The average mortgage rate, dropped to 6.8% after the Fed meeting minutes. They're going lower too, as we record this on Thursday, the 14th. And the Fed decision yesterday showed that the majority of people on the Fed think that there will be 3 additional rate cuts in 2024 as well. So as long as the trend is heading that direction, everyone's really excited about it. I think it's mostly good. I don't really want to get into the potential negatives right now. We'll stay positive, but what do you all think about this one?
I liked the note about obviously it can bring more houses to the market. I feel like a lot of people just, officially were like, I'm waiting. I have the time and I will wait. So if something can bring it down, or they see like maybe it peaked at, around 8 and now they can financially afford more in the 6 range. I think that'll be exciting, especially like the move up buyers who want to do that and leaning into their equity as well in their house to take that forward movement. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah. And I like the combination that this is happening right when we're about to go into that stronger January market usually. So the combination of the two hopefully will get us a little momentum the first few months of the year, because that's always what we want to see. We don't want to feel behind after the first few months of the year. So if this combined with, that just normal seasonal uptick, hopefully that brings good things.
Yeah. Have you all heard about the vibe session? Have you heard that term before?
No.
It's where we're not really worse off necessarily as countries, companies, or individuals, but the vibes are off. Like we just feel pessimistic about life. And so we're in a vibe session. And so I thought it was interesting. They said consumers' vibes about the economy should improve next year. And I think that's generally true. If there's something that still kind of concerns me, it's thinking about the amount of toilet paper that is in your average Costco building. You go into a Costco and you think to yourself, man, there's giant piles of toilet paper here. And then I can see the entire back wall to the ceiling is full of pallets also containing toilet paper. And yet that fast, there was no toilet paper in the world for weeks on end. And so the trick is that the Fed is not just trying to kind of get inflation to come down. They're trying to prevent whiplashes in the economy from occurring. And supply and demand in home building are things that can change way faster than most people realize. They think it's a slow trend, but we don't want a big giant supply of homes hitting the market because rates have come down and everyone's and I can't, maybe I just know a bunch of miserable people. It's entirely possible. But I think I told this story last week, this family that bought a house that they didn't see. It was over $1 million along a freeway. And now they're in the home and they are realizing how much noise comes from major roads and freeways. And they like broke down in tears. Like, what did we do?
No, no.
And so I just think there are a lot of people who still don't love their situation, or the stress of needing to make a change just keeps building and they're putting it off. And so that's, if there's anything I'm a little bit nervous about, it's a snapback kind of effect. I think it'll still, I mean, builders still are going to have so we're going to offer like 3% interest rates have been out there, a little on the rare side. But if rates do get back down to, let's just say 4.5 at some point in the near future, since you're the queen of incentives now, Jackie, or at least until someone else writes an article about it, what do you think the next incentive is or should be? Because I think at some point, the buy down's not going to make that much of a difference in the payment.
Well, I think, like you said, ideally you don't want an incentive, but I think everyone's kind of looking for the hook to get the people in. That's not just stumble upon our website and find your perfect home. We're trying to catch them a little bit like they're a fish, and the incentive is the net that brings them on over. So in terms of incentives, you know, I've seen people, they're going back to weird ones though. They're like, oh, you can have furniture. Oh, we'll do your washer and dryer. And it's like, shouldn't you already, not the furniture, but there are certain things that I think there's expectations, but I also think maybe some things were taken away and people want those back. So
yeah,
I don't know if there's a perfect answer for what incentive to lean forward in, but just, you know, making
you hit it. The best answer is no incentive. But I think what is most likely to happen if builders still need to use something is actually just price reductions.
Yeah.
Because if you've seen the charts of the average price of a used home today is, I think, $560 around the country, and the average cost of a new home is actually below that chart I shared a couple days ago. I think that's the case. But if more homes come on the market, builders will have to respond by, you know, if interest rates aren't the difference maker. Like I heard Meritage's CEO was interviewed on CNBC and said, more or less, you don't have to go listen to the interview, because here's what he said: if we have finished inventory and we buy down the rate far enough, these homes just sell themselves. That's pretty much what he said. But when interest rate or the financing of the home is no longer a big deal, I think it's going to end up being price or options, like free options or price discounts that people do. But again, don't do any of it.
I mean, lower interests are good and they're going to excite people, but obviously we will have more resale to compete with. And I think that's, you know, zooming out and remembering that while other home builders are competition, our number one competition is resale homes, more so than not.
Well, it's going to be opportunity to say you settled in 2020 because you were trying to buy a house fast and what was available, and you got stuck in it. And this time, make a good choice. Get something you're going to stay in that's going to last for a while.
Yep. Oh, okay. This is a good reminder too. Next up from Inman.com, Zillow unveils a 3D tour of Santa's enviable North Pole luxury cabin. It's $1.18 million, and you can go inside and check it out. Not that we're hyping Santa's house necessarily, but I think you mentioned this about Taylor Morrison's design press release a couple podcasts ago, Julie.
Yeah.
It's just great. Like, what prevents any builder from saying, if Santa built a house with us, here's what it might look like, and getting some press on the local news or with local bloggers, or just sending that out as an interesting thing to send out in a monthly email to people. I think, you know, good on Zillow, but also it's a great example of anyone can do this stuff. I thought that was a great point that you made about the Taylor Morrison piece, which is why I put it in there. And then the other thing, sorry, Zillow, we're done on the Santa's house. I think you were on the episode about the article about why Americans don't innovate like marketers around the world.
Yes.
And it was hilarious listening to you and Andrew, and you're all like, we don't know why this is in here really.
Yeah, I was like, who
Kind
put
of
this
weird.
article in here? It was
Yeah,
you.
that was my fault. So I do want to go back to that. And the premise of the article is that like all the innovation and marketing is coming from other places around the world. And that marketers in the US are boring and stodgy and overly focused on data and metrics. And to me, I think he's incorrect, but product marketing is such a bigger deal internationally, meaning the marketers are involved way earlier in a project and they're manufacturing reasons to talk about those projects way in advance. And it's not just like, hey, let's have a dog park or let's have a sled riding hill or a neighborhood library box at the entrance to the community. A lot of these are just marketing being involved in things beyond advertising. And I think that allows you to be more innovative when from the beginning you've been planning to have this unique aspect to the community or the whatever the product is. And then the other thing is that's the glass half full side. The glass half empty side is that international marketers tend to have no understanding at all of attribution. Like they're back where we were in 2001, 2002 of like, you can't know anything. So what's the point? Just spend millions of dollars, more hype, the better, more virality, the better, just become known for being known. And of course, I think the criticism is correct that I feel now in our industry, we're actually going too far towards attribution. And that does cause a little bit of a lack of creativity and a lack of thinking outside the box and an overly hyper focus on, I just got to get leads. Are they quality leads? I don't know. I need leads. I need the metrics to look good. So that's.
Yeah. It's like that back and forth between the brands and story. Like that's needed. But if you're not getting leads and sales at all, the brand and story don't matter. But then if you go so far to just focusing, you lose all your brand and story. So yeah, it definitely is a balance. But the article,
Zonda just did a luxury, like a luxury high-rise event of some kind. And they're like, we're trying to get ultra high net worth individuals to buy $4 and $50 million condos in major metro areas. Like, yeah, you can't, I mean, to that point, like you're not going to spend $15 million on Google ads.
Yeah.
So part of it is like, you do have to have these other things that are more creative and more attention getting, but so I get it. I just thought it was interesting to hear someone try to take such a strong stance about Americans being uncreative.
Well, okay. So I know we're going long, but it's funny because I've been reviewing builder budgets this week and one of them like slashed their innovation budget to try new things. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't we trying new things? So like to help them in all access, I'm actually going to put in if you had 20 grand, no questions asked for any kind of marketing, like what inspires you? What's different? And like, where would you go? And you're not allowed to be safe. Like go weird with it.
Well, it gives you permission to create a minimum viable audience that is defined by you and no one else. I mean, that's for those of you who don't know, this line item in the budgeting tool that we give builders is whoever typically has to ask for approval is who owns that line item. They don't have to ask for approval. It is just money that they get to iterate and try. Like even, we do this here. Mike sends me expense report slips for me on my credit card. And, he's like, what's this for? And I'm like, innovation. We're trying something out. Like, yeah. So it's okay. It's just, you
back in the day, it was like everyone bought a drone, like, because it was hard to get them to commit. It's like, no, like, or try to get but that was years ago. And now that's the standard of what needs to be included. So,
yep. And this year's standard, I've said this a couple weeks ago, but I'll say it again because I keep seeing a ton of videos on social networks with terrible audio. Get yourself a wireless lav mic that connects to your phone, please, for everyone's ears and attention spans. Because there's what you watch or try to watch something with terrible audio and you're like, I'm out. I'm just not, I can't hear what they're saying. I'm not that interested. Moving on. All right. Current favorites, things we love, things we hate, things we love to hate. Julie, I see
Yeah.
you put butter.
All it says on
down.
there is butter. So I've always, because I'm cheap, y'all know this, have just bought the Walmart brand sticks of butter. But just recently, oh, wait,
You're value oriented. You're not
yes,
cheap.
I'm sorry. I'm value oriented. Yes, I like things that are affordable. So I've always bought like the off brand, whatever. I have discovered the Kerrygold pure Irish butter. Have y'all had this?
Yeah.
I have.
It's so much better. Why did nobody tell me how much better it was? I was like, this is life changing. So if you're
Yeah.
like me and you're buying the cheap Walmart brand butter, go buy the Kerrygold Irish butter.
I
It's
love
so
this
much
so
better.
much.
It's so
And one of the
much
reasons I
better.
love it is because it's going to make Jackie and I fight again for a second. By Dan Ariely, Predictably Irrational, which is like 10 out of 10 on my book list. And every time I talk to Jackie about it, she's like, is all right. It's like 5 out of 10 is okay. But in that book, he talks about the fact that Kerrygold butter is probably better, has better ingredients, grass-fed cows, all the rest. But more importantly, what it has is the story of all those things and the presentation and packaging, right? The size of the bar is different. It's got a different kind of wrapper around it. The packaging looks like someone actually gave a damn about it and like wanted it to look good. And all those things add up to truly tasting better, even though chemically they shouldn't make a difference. The experience of the butter itself makes it truly in your brain chemically taste better.
Yeah. I've seen the experiments with restaurants. They serve the same exact thing, but they like the plates are different and the cups are different and people have different values associated with it. So
yeah. So how much does Kerrygold butter cost, Julie? Do you know?
I don't know, like
exactly, because it doesn't matter. It's
things.
incomparable. No, you did it perfect. You can't, there's no way to know. Like when you're comparing that butter to another butter, because everything is slightly different, including the story and the packaging, you don't feel ripped off because it's incomparable. It's a totally different thing.
It's worth it. Everybody go get some Kerrygold.
I think for those of you who do bulletproof coffee, which I went through that phase for a little bit, but that's you put some of Kerrygold butter in your coffee. If you've ever done bulletproof. Yeah. It's supposed to be good for your brain, they say.
That marketing's got you, Kevin.
All right, Jackie, what do you got?
Mine is the last book I read on maternity leave, Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. And I would say that if anyone's looking for just a new read or sneak into the end of the year, beginning of the year, it's not overly long. And I feel like he condenses the book very well to give good action items. And Hidden Potential is more about like just understanding one, like just because you're mid-30s doesn't mean your life's over, but also like how to talk to teams. And he just gives a lot of really great examples of assumptions people make and then things that are actually happening. And one of them is talking about how usually the people who are best at the jobs aren't the people who are the smartest at their jobs. It's the people who don't think they're the smartest and try the hardest. And so it just, and then talks about like the best teachers sometimes are the people who are like one chapter ahead of you because they're panicking and then they teach you the best. So just understanding that too, for the people, I remember I talked to marketers and they're like, I have to talk to the sales team. I'm like, great, get uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, you learn. So I know you said it pretty often, Kevin, too, like that is the
in the academy. It's like, hey, everyone, we're going to like make you answer questions in front of your peers because that comfortable feeling, that stress is the glue to memory.
Yeah. And so I think going into that and going into like, I don't want to try new things, realizing that there are ways to not trick yourself, but there are ways to just identify it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to try new things. And he gives a lot of great, good stories. So good book for the beginning of the year to set your standards high. And if anyone has a good book for the rest of the year, let me know. So I think I got over 30 books read this year, but now that my maternity leave is over, it'll probably be about 5 this year. So,
I love it.
Kevin.
One of my favorite things actually just happened today. Bryce, or as Jen Barkin calls her, Brycey. Don't call her Brycey. I'm pretty sure only Jen's allowed to do that. But our very own Bryce Baker made a post on LinkedIn that I thought was awesome. She said, today I overheard someone say, I'm going to push that to the new year. And it got me thinking, what does that mean? Why wait until the new year? Are you feeling defeated now? Do you believe a new year, new you will be the perfect reset? Yeah. And this always hits me as a Christian on Easter, because I'm always tempted to write this blog post of like, the new year can start any day. Like you can decide to change at any moment. There is absolutely nothing about January 1st other than the fact that everyone else is talking about it and maybe gives you permission to dream a little bit more freely. But any day can be a reset day. Like today can be that reset day. And I thought that was really good, really good insight there from Bryce. No reason to wait. Nothing's going to change tomorrow. And then the other thing on my list is, do I want to talk about that? No, I don't. I'm going to hold that one back. It's a book that I had to drive for 4 hours to go talk at an offsite this week for one of our builders. And so I got to go. It's one of those magical things. I love doing it. I've always loved driving, but to be able to go on a trip and listen to an entire audiobook within that one trip, it's like better than a 3-part movie series or like a mini series on Netflix. I just love being able to check that off and from a different perspective. So I'll share that maybe in a couple of weeks.
It's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger. All right, everyone, we're getting close. End of the year. I think next week we're going to have whoever's on next week is going to have some type of top 10 list. So there you go. If you're on the podcast next week, you got homework.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll see you then.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.